In the quiet moments between sleep and waking, some people catch glimpses of lives they've never lived, or perhaps lives they've lived before. This is the story of Braden LaBelle from Boston, Massachusetts, an individual who carries vivid memories of a past life as Livia, a wealthy Austrian woman who took her own life in 1832. Braden's earliest indication that something was different came in toddlerhood. When climbing stairs, they would instinctively lift their shorts as if managing heavy skirts. Their mother would ask, puzzled, "What are you doing? Why are you lifting your shorts when you go up the stairs?" Looking down, young Braden would realise there was no need, yet the muscle memory persisted. On one occasion, standing on their parents' bed and lifting the heavy comforter, Braden felt a profound sense of relief. Finally, there was the weight of a fabric that was supposed to be there, hanging from the waist. Growing up in a technically Jewish but largely non-religious household, Braden wasn't exposed to concepts of reincarnation until age 12, when their mother handed them Brian Wise's Many Lives, Many Masters. The book resonated so deeply that Braden felt they were reading knowledge they had already possessed, but hadn't had words for. From as young as 8, Braden had struggled with overwhelming emotional pain and a longing to escape it. By 9, they had entered what their parents would later call their Gothic phase, filling notebooks with poetry about death when most children were still playing with toys. Throughout their life, Braden compulsively drew the same woman over and over, a figure in a grey-blue gown with bare shoulders and curly hair worn down in a style that seemed starkly anachronistic. They didn't understand who she was or why they kept drawing her, only that she felt important. The first major breakthrough came around 2010 or 11 during a healing session with Angelo, a young healer from Queens. During the Reiki treatment, Braden saw the woman they'd been drawing their whole life standing before them in that bluish gown. Suddenly they noticed daylight behind her and an ornate gilded frame. It was a reflection in a mirror. Looking down at the woman's breasts, tiny waist and the curve of her skirt, Braden realised with shock, "Oh, it's me, I'm her." The most profound experience occurred in a Harvard Square Algerian tea shop. When served tea with a silver pot and sugar cubes with little tongs, something Braden had never experienced before, the simple act of plunking sugar cubes in the cup triggered something deep. The delicate action felt strangely familiar. Then, while stirring the tea, Braden noticed their hand moving in an unfamiliar way, holding the spoon straight up and down, wrist soft, gently moving it without letting the spoon touch the sides of the cup. Braden would later discover that this was the aristocratic way of stirring tea, something they had never learned. Suddenly the walls seemed to expand outward. Braden found themselves in a drawing room in the 1800s, sitting as that woman with an aunt positioned diagonally across from them. The aunt wasn't looking at them, but Braden knew she was the only person who truly understood and loved them. The grief was so overwhelming that Braden began sobbing in the middle of the cafe, unusual for someone who rarely cried. When Braden returned home, their housemate, a Harvard Divinity School student who claimed to be psychically inclined, immediately asked why an elegant older woman in 19th century dress was standing with them, pointing an elegant finger and wearing rings and carrying a cane. The housemate described exactly the aunt Braden had just experienced in their vision. In 2023, feeling compelled by persistent inner guidance despite financial struggles, Braden underwent a formal past life regression. Under hypnosis, they found themselves as Livia, or possibly Lavinia, in Austria, outside Vienna, in the year 1832. The regression revealed a life of privilege shadowed by profound suffering. Livia lived on a property with a beautiful pond and a modestly large house, wealthy but not a grand estate. Her father was a toad-like man with a wide face, facial hair connected to his moustache, and balding head. He was cruel, calculating, and deeply resentful of his daughter's intelligence. Even at age 10, Livia understood that he resented her because, as she matured, she began to resemble the girls who had rejected him in his youth. He wanted to punish them through her. During a family dinner when Livia was 10, the scene was tense and dark. Her father had pulled his chair close to the fireplace, leaving the rest of the family cold. He glowered at her from across the table, challenging her to defy him so he could hit her. Her mother desperately tried to make small talk to deflect his attention, while her younger brother sat completely dissociated. The servants in the corner both pitied and resented Livia. She wasn't kind to them, taking out her powerlessness on the only people over whom she had any authority. By age 16, Livia attended a boarding school and was invited to a lavish luncheon at a classmate's family home. Sitting with the other girls in their finest dresses, she realised with despair that they were all idiots who only wanted to discuss marriage and boys. They couldn't understand that marriage meant becoming property, having no ability to refuse their husbands, bearing children who would either become victims or perpetrators. Even her best friend, though intelligent, looked forward to having her own home and entertaining guests. Livia saw her future spreading out before her. Horrible things happening in my home, alternating with futile, stupid interactions, and pretending not to hate her husband, while everyone else did the same. At age 26, Livia faced her breaking point. Her father was forcing her to marry the son of a railroad magnate. The Austrian Railroad was being built in 1832, a detail Braden later verified. This young man had made it clear, quote, in small ways that he thinks that I haven't seen, that he can't wait to conquer me. He wants to break my spirit, and he wants to have permanent access to my body. The regression captured Livia's final day. Standing at the top of the staircase, she saw her beloved aunt arriving in travelling attire, stopping on her way to or from Vienna. Livia had refused to let the maid do her hair, slapping away her hands, unable to bear being touched. She appeared with her hair completely down while formally dressed, an insane thing to do for the era that immediately worried her aunt. In the drawing room they sat in silence while tea was being served. The aunt understood everything without words being spoken. When Livia began sobbing in a, quote, ugly, uncontrolled way, her aunt didn't leave or look away. She simply sat with her, providing the profound gift of being seen and not abandoned. This was the very scene Braden had experienced in the Harvard Square Cafe. After her aunt left, Livia stood before the gilded mirror in the hall, seeing how unhinged she looked and understanding this was the breaking point. She took her own life, using what Braden believes was a brass letter opener to the wrist. Curiously, during the regression, Braden's mind wouldn't let them see the actual act. Only the moments before, white bed linens, her nightgown, candlelight reflecting on the brass blade, her slender wrist. In the aftermath, Livia initially wanted to see her mother find her body, wanting to witness the love in her horror and anguish that hadn't been fully given in life. But then, realising the compassion her mother would feel and the guilt she would carry, Livia decided she didn't need to see it. A gentle, loving presence waited behind her until she was ready to go. The regression then showed something extraordinary, a life projection of what would have happened had Livia lived. Her marriage to the railroad heir would have made her incredibly wealthy, essentially the queen of the aristocracy. Though not happy, she would have found more love in motherhood than expected. Most importantly, after her spirit broke and partially recovered, she would have begun whispering to other women during tea, planting ideas about what women and girls were capable of. These ideas would have rippled outward, advancing women's situation in the region much more quickly. In the space between lives, Livia appeared as a translucent figure, floating in a void, while her recent life drifted away like pieces of waterlogged paper in a river. Everything dissolved except a little spinning ball of rage that wouldn't dissipate. Surrounded by unseen presences, they concluded she would need to carry this into her next life to resolve it. This rage found expression in Braden's current life. As a child, they were drawn to Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid, not the Disney version, but the darker original, where the mermaid must choose between taking a life or ending her own. Braden always imagined the mermaid would use the knife on her own wrists rather than ending the life of the prince. They were simultaneously drawn to and frightened by their grandfather's letter opener, feeling it was somehow dangerous and alluring. The regression profoundly transformed Braden. Having grappled with a desire to escape life since childhood, the experience of witnessing what might follow such a choice, and all they might have missed, deeply changed their perspective. When asked what they were meant to learn in this lifetime, Braden immediately answered, to push through and do it anyway. This lifetime, as someone who has struggled to relate to cultural norms, find financial stability, including 9 months of homelessness, and fight for recognition and rights, seems to be another iteration of rubbing up against societal constraints. Where Livia was trapped by her beauty and wealth in a system that treated her as property, Braden faces different but related challenges around identity and acceptance. Braden now understands their lifelong traits differently. Their longing for a way out carried over from Livia's choice, the spinning ball of rage expressed through writing monologues filled with righteous anger, the complex relationship with identity. They speculate that individuals who don't resonate with a specific gender might be old souls who've lived as both sexes so many times that their perception of gender has become blurred, or that passing away during one's sexual peak, as Livia did at 26, might influence how they view themselves in the next life. Today, Braden works as a filmmaker and theatre maker, still driven by the goal to change the way people think about themselves and their lives. They recognise that Livia's intelligence and insight about society's failings have transformed into a creative drive to influence positive change. Where Livia could only see 2 options, submit or cease to be, Braden has found a third way, to push through and create art that challenges societal limitations. The message from Livia's story resonates across time. Unfair societal expectations never create happy humans. Whether in 1832 Austria, where women were property, or in modern times, where certain groups still face discrimination, the struggle for recognition, autonomy, and the right to live authentically continues. But where Livia saw no hope, Braden has learned the crucial lesson. Sometimes the only way forward is to just push through and do it anyway.